I'm back. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer, joined by Mike Gallagher, and I'm a very refreshed version of myself after a nice 8 to 10 days in Costa Rica. Enjoyed the All-Star break, watched none of the festivities. Basically, it was just, smelling the roses, doing hiking to waterfalls and watching friends surf. I did not participate in surfing personally because I'm not much of a surfer, but had a ton of fun. Mike, you've been holding down the fort in my absence. The team crushed it over the weekend on props.
Yeah.
Shout out to you guys. How you doing, my man?
Doing good. Yeah, I smelled a little bit of roses too on the break. My girlfriend's family was in town here, so hung out with them. So not as much basketball as usually in my life the last couple of days, but now I told her like, yep, I'm not leaving my house for like the next 3 weeks. I've sacrificed too much basketball. But yeah, I'm ready to go. Ready for this stretch run. Fantasy playoffs coming up for a lot of people too, so pumped about that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of good content on the way. Obviously, some of it free, some of it behind the paywall. If you want the free stuff, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Here you'll get notifications whenever we go live. Make sure to be subscribing to our NBA podcast feed as well, Established Run NBA podcast. We interviewed Blake Murphy, who covers the Raptors today. That'll be out later today, talking about the Raptors and how they potentially can handle things without OG Anunoby and maybe without Fred VanVleet. And let's start there, Mike. It's a 7-game slate, and I think that's got to be one of the biggest question marks on the slate. Toronto and Brooklyn both playing each other with playoff positioning kind of in mind here in the 7-8 seeds in the Eastern Conference. Currently, Fred VanVleet is the biggest questionable on the slate. What are your expectations for his availability, and how do they potentially replace things if he cannot go?
Yeah, so we saw on Saturday that he was, quote, unlikely to play according to Nick Nurse, and he goes out there and plays, and they got waxed. VanVleet said he kind of felt better, and Nurse agreed that he looked better on Saturday compared to Friday. You're looking at another back-to-back slate here against a Nets team that's not nearly as good as the Hawks team they played over the weekend. So you got to think there's a pretty good chance. VanVleet also said it's going to, quote, be a pain in the ass to play through this knee thing. We talked about it a lot with Blake. Shout out to Blake, man. That was so good. You guys check it out in the pod feed when it hits later today. But yeah, it sounds like he's going to probably sit one of these two. So the question is, would you rather sit him here or back in Toronto tomorrow? And I mean, I think it makes sense to play him here, right? Because Kyrie can't play over there either, if I recall, right, with their vaccine stuff. So either way, I think it makes more sense to maybe sit him Robert. Either way, you could sit out, which we could talk about what that means for the rotation. But I think it's pretty much going to be game time here. So we should get that hopefully right at lock, but we may not. So you may want to be a little bit nimble as we find out what's up. But we could talk about what that means for the rotation if he sits.
Yeah, and obviously the Raptors have been willing to do weird things all year in the absence of Fred VanVleet. You see a lot of Pascal Siakam picking up ball handling responsibilities in those situations as well. So who would you expect without OG, without Fred? What does the starting lineup look like outside of Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, and Gary Trent Jr.?
Yeah, so Blake and I are kind of in agreement that like their guards, Banton, and they've seen Malachi Flynn play some minutes. I think they just start that. And they basically have Siakam and Trent Jr. and even Scotty Barnes to a degree be like the guards in just a gigantic lineup. I just don't think they trust Banton, Flynn, Champagnie enough to play them, 25 or more minutes. So you're giving up a lot of spacing there. And yeah, Siakam's been like a guard lately. The last 4 games, only Luka Doncic has played in each of his team's 4 games and has more drives than him. Like he's driving like at an insane rate right now. So obviously, if VanVleet sits, you're talking about massive ball handling increase for Siakam, Gary Trent Jr. in a pretty good matchup, and then also Scotty Barnes to a smaller degree, and that'll open up more of the guard minutes, right? Because again, essentially, if you're playing Siakam as a guard, you're going to have to play more Boucher, play more Thad Young. Precious Achiuwa also could take over. Nick Nurse left the door open for that, so I think Achiuwa could start today, especially if VanVleet's in it, because the reason why he was starting with Birch was because he had good chemistry with VanVleet. So if VanVleet's not out there, then that's obviously useless. So, Achiuwa played great lately too. So definitely a guy I think that could kind of sneakily benefit if VanVleet doesn't play.
All right. Other questionable tags on the slate, we've got a pair of twins, the Martin brothers, Caleb and Cody, different teams, different situations. Let's start with Caleb. No Kyle Lowry for the Heat as well. What are your thoughts on Caleb Martin's availability tonight for Miami?
Yeah, something you could say. They don't really need him. It's a new injury for him. So we'll see what happens with that. They don't. I don't think even without Lowry, I don't think they really need him too much. They'll just bring in Max Strus, who got booted out. Obviously, without Lowry, I would expect Gabe Vincent to start. And we saw in the last game that Jimmy Butler, shout out to us for betting us under on boards in the back-to-back. He had some soreness, and they sat him out in the fourth quarter as they closed with Vincent basically over him with Hero and Bam like really running the show. So without Lowry, that definitely puts Gabe Vincent on the board. And the matchup I kind of like for him today too. Hero obviously gets huge increase, and we'll see if Jimmy Butler's knee or whatever the soreness was is going to impact him today, because he was playing really well before he didn't sub back in too. So that was interesting to see. And Bam gets such a good matchup here coming in with after a 36 ball. So into him against the Bulls defense that's getting wrecked inside. So lot of places to attack on this Miami spot.
Yeah, and then Cody Martin for Charlotte, questionable with a back injury as well. We've seen the Charlotte rotation tighten throughout the year. Still no Gordon Hayward in that spot for Charlotte. So what are we expecting for Cody Martin and his availability tonight?
Yeah, last night James Braga said that he was kind of playing through some stuff, so I was expecting him to come on the injury report today. I don't think he's playing. Probably not confident enough to project him out. But pretty straightforward. They're going to want a lot of size anyway, so I think they would probably have started PJ Washington regardless. So without Cody Martin, you're taking a pretty big piece out, right? He played 32 minutes last night, so you're adding more to the bigs. Mason Plumlee will be a much bigger part of the rotation, in my opinion, and him and Harrell will probably split most of those center minutes, and we'll have PJ Washington more as a straight four-man. So those guys kind of would sneakily benefit if Martin doesn't play. But yeah, Rozier has been freaking lights out. Really good matchup for Rozier. Bucks are vulnerable to three-pointers, so I'm kind of into him today. Kelvin Oubre would benefit a little bit more as well.
Brandon Clark for Memphis is also questionable on the injury report tonight. What are your thoughts on his potential availability, and how does it impact the Memphis rotation?
Yeah, kind of don't know. Got poked in the eye over the weekend, did not return. We've seen, Rashawn Holmes missed a lot of games for eye injuries, but sometimes guys just come right back. So don't really have a lean on it. Obviously, it boosted up Kyle Anderson, his minutes were plummeting here, flirting with like 10 minutes sometimes. Barely getting into the upper teens these days. Also, John Conchar is not available either. So there's minutes to be had. So maybe D'Anthony Melton could kind of break through with a minutes ceiling. Maybe we see a bit more Kyle Anderson. I think Kyle Anderson's minutes would be extremely safe if Brandon Clark can't go. But yeah, those guys would, I think, benefit the most. Maybe a little bit of Tyus Jones overlap with John Morant. Jaws is freaking awesome right now after that little hip scare. I was interested to see how he would look. Ja, after that really frightening hip injury, comes out and hangs 46 on the Bulls. So he's obviously got no concerns there.
Yeah, no concerns with Ja. Other big man, Rashawn Holmes for Sacramento. He's obviously been displaced a little bit with the addition of Domantas Sabonis here. Been a tough season for Rashawn Holmes in general. On the injury report with a back issue tonight, what are your thoughts on his availability?
Yeah, I don't think he's got much of a chance. Even before this injury, Gentry talked about him playing through stuff, and it didn't seem like he had any sort of chance of playing in the last one. So I think he's a little unlikely to play here. We saw Damian Jones and Alex Len basically split the backup minutes behind Sabonis, but there's not going to be enough anyways. Like Sabonis is just going to eat up all those center minutes. They're not going to play them together, obviously. Interesting note, too, just quick, not injury related, but Sabonis' front court touches have actually plummeted in his last 4 games. He was about at 50 front court touches per game with the Pacers, and now he's at just 31 over his last 4 games. So that was kind of interesting as maybe De'Aaron Fox is, maybe not having the great report that we've seen kind of Harrison Barnes impact him as well. So just something to note. And I do like De'Aaron Fox in this matchup against the Thunder today. But I don't think the Holmes thing really moves the needle, but worth mentioning though.
Yeah, on the Spurs side of the equation, McDermott and Langford still questionable here. We did see Richardson play since the return from the break, so they are integrating some of these pieces. McDermott, I don't know how much of a difference it really makes in terms of, it probably helps Keita Bates-Diop a little bit more if McDermott was unable to go.
A lot more, I would say. Yeah, I would say it helps KBD a lot more because you're going up against Jaren Jackson. You're going to want size there. And then if you're putting KBD at the starting 4 spot, that in turn is going to really help the floor and ceiling for Keldon Johnson in a matchup. I think it's pretty good. The Grizzlies have actually been pretty bad at protecting the paint lately, despite their defense showing up overall. So the McDermott thing is like kind of sneaky big, in my opinion. It would put Keldon on the board. I don't really like the matchup against for Vassell in the spot, but yeah, I think that, and then we've got also Jakob Pertl coming back, DeJounte coming back. We should mention all that too. But yeah, if McDermott can't play, and I kind of think he sits, just given the way that, like, he got hurt in the last game. It's a knee. Makes sense to sit him out. So that would really put KBD. I'm assuming he's cheap, despite playing awesome over the weekend when they sat everybody out. But yeah, KBD and Keldon will be really big winners there.
Yeah. Nets, still no Kyrie Irving, still no Ben Simmons, still no Kevin Durant in this game against the Raptors. So it's going to be Seth Curry, Patty Mills, that kind of show once again. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the Nets situation tonight?
Yeah, but we saw, man, Patty Mills got wrecked. I dinged him pretty hard when we did the minutes, but I didn't think 16 was coming. So he'll be back up. He'll be starting, probably looking at minutes in the low 30s. He was playing pretty well. I like this matchup for Seth Curry as well, against the Raptors, who have been vulnerable to those wingy, cornery threes. He's going to get attacked on defense like relentlessly, though. So that's something you guys talk more about on the DFS show. But yeah, we've seen James Johnson play a lot. Like, this rotation's pretty thin without Kyrie. We'll see if Goran Dragic gets a revenge game. He'll probably play a little bit. And Bruce Brown's minutes are so safe right now. They need a point of attack defender. He's the only one they have. So I think Bruce Brown's minutes are outstanding in this spot, and the matchup that should suit him really well with the way the Raptors want to run. I think he can sneak some O boards in as well. James Johnson's minutes should be pretty good getting the Siakam matchup. So the Nets have been really, really ripe for the picking in DFS. They are dead last in half-court defense and overall defense, surpassing the Rockets over the weekend, thanks to the Clippers sucking on them yesterday. But yeah, this game is freaking awesome. One that I think is going to be one of the ones you want to target for DFS today.
Yeah, and one thing I'll note, it's always been tough to decipher Steve Nash's decisions with the end of his rotation in terms of in-game substitution patterns and different things. But that matchup against Milwaukee, a team that plays bigger on the whole, they're playing Toronto tonight, so somewhat similar in terms of the way these teams tend to play. He made the active decision to start James Johnson and Bruce Brown over Patty Mills there. And that's with having Goran Dragic as a bench guard. So it's not like that you needed more guard depth. I think what that screams to me is they need to emphasize size and defensive versatility against some of these bigger teams. So I would expect both Bruce Brown and James Johnson to have substantial roles in this back-to-back set as well. So, yeah, really important to note there. Okay, some returns. Markelle Fultz came back over the weekend, apparently. That was news to me when I returned and checked in today. So what were the early returns on Markelle Fultz? And what do you think? I mean, early on, I assume there's going to be a pretty heavy minutes limit on him. What are the expectations here for Fultz?
Yeah, I would expect a hardcore cap. Off the top of my head, I'd probably say 20 minutes. We'll see. But yeah, obviously really, really long ramp up over a year since he tore his ACL. Well, I think he tore it like almost around New Year's Day, if I remember. So yeah, I mean, that's a 13, 14 month ramp up there. So yeah, I think he'll be capped. RJ Hampton was really good in the last game, so he would be a guy that may lose minutes. They don't want to take Gary Harris out of the rotation. That Chuma Okeke played freaking awesome over the weekend. The second unit was just tremendous in this last game against the old poor Rockets, an easy team to target. But it's also low-key could affect Bamba a little bit because those small lineups, if they're going to go small, then they can't go big, right? So I think Bamba's a low-key loser here in a matchup that could be interesting. But yeah, I don't think Fultz like moves the needle really too much on Suggs. Like Suggs got in a foul trouble over the weekend. That's an issue that they're going to have to deal with because they almost want him to play a style that like is conducive to fouling. So that's going to always be a little bit of an issue. But I think it'll just be really concentrated. A little bit minutes lost for RJ Hampton, a little bit minutes lost for Ross. Gary Harris won't play 30. But other than that, I don't think it really moves the needle too much. Maybe it hurts a little bit of ball handling for some of the guys. But nothing to really make me think that it's too much of a problem.
Malik Beasley probable for Minnesota.
Yep, should be back. Had an illness. Interesting comment from Chris Finch over the weekend. He was like, "Oh yeah, we thought that Jalen Noel could come in there and fill some minutes, and he didn't. Like he like low key bashed him, in my opinion. But yeah, he should be back. Our rotation's kind of as is. Interested to see how Cat performs. Cat's usage is up in the last 2 games above his average when things kind of haven't even going well for him. So even in a bad matchup, I think Cat could, kind of do some damage today.
Saving the best for you for near the last, the Oklahoma City Thunder. No Lou Dort, no Josh Giddey, no Ty Jerome, no Kenrich Williams. A lot of rotation players here out for Oklahoma City in a favorable matchup against Sacramento. How do things look tonight for the Thunder?
Yeah, really good matchup. The Kings are top 3 in offensive pace. They're bottom 5 in pretty much every defensive category. I would expect the starting lineup to be the same. Aaron Wiggins will get the Fox matchup. Bazley should get the Harry B matchup. They probably start Roby against Sabonis, but I'm not confident in that. They may go back to Favors. We saw Favors sit out in the last game in the back-to-back. Definitely we've seen Trey Mann really move into that number 2 role behind SGA, but I think SGA is going to straight smash again. He was my flag plant over the weekend, and he comes up with a freaking monster. Shout out to me. I would expect pretty big minutes for their starting 5, or at least the starting 4, excluding the center. So Bazley, SGA, Trey Mann, and Wiggins should all be really busy. You're not really looking to Wiggins, but the matchup's not bad just because they play so fast. Can see some easy stuff. But Trey, SGA, and Bazley look like they're really good targets. And Lindy Waters, baby, 24 minutes. Dagnall said after the game he wasn't expecting to play him that much, but he was in a good rhythm in the second unit. Had a lot of ball handling a little bit, more so than I thought. But we also saw Olivier Sarr basically take their Favors minutes. He would go away if Favors comes back. So, but they might not play Favors either way. But you're not really going there. But it would be interesting for Roby if he does start.
Shout out to Lindy Waters in the Upper West Side. All right, the Cavs. No Rondo, no Darius Garland. So what are they doing at point guard other than playing a lot of Brandon Goodwin? Do we see Tim Frazier get into the mix?
Yeah, a lot of Brandon Goodwin over the weekend. Played poorly, but still got 38 minutes. They did not bring Tim Frazier in, even though he was available. That may change today. Obviously, the RJ Demhard minutes were hard to see for them. So, I would expect Frazier to come in, maybe take a little bit of upside off. But, I mean, they trust Brandon Goodwin with this offense to run it so much. He's playing full court. He's playing like Mr. 94 feet, picking up guys before half court. They're asking a lot out of him. Didn't really look tired. So, really good matchup. I'm not worried about Beverly. I don't think Beverly could really slow him down. So, definitely in a good win today. Yeah,
low key, one of the guys that's been picking up a lot of usage in the absence of Darius Garland is Lauri Markkanen. Took 18 field goal attempts in that game. 6 for 9 from 3, 0 for 9 from 2. So weird way to get your 23 points on the night, but he's one of these guys who's benefited certainly from the absence of Darius Garland. Only other injury note that we have is the Pacers, who haven't fouled yet. I just assume Malcolm Brogdon's questionable because they don't even need to foul to tell me that Malcolm Brogdon's questionable. I believe it is there each and every day, but they're on the second end of a back-to-back after a shocking blowout win over the Boston Celtics and had no problem scoring points against the Boston defense that's ratcheted up against everybody all year long. You saw 4 starters in score over 20 points last night. They shot greater than 50% from the field. Really impressive performance from Indiana on the second night of back-to-back here. They have not fouled yet. So just some players to keep an eye on there outside of Brogdon.
Yep, they are definitely managing Brogdon. He hasn't played the fourth quarter each of the last 2 games. That's been their plan. Play him heavy early and then to sit him. So you would think if you're still managing him, you're probably sitting him out in a back-to-back. So obviously, even though Halliburton has been really good in assists, even in minutes with Brogdon, I think it's only like a 20-minute sample so far. But encouraging sign. But he'd obviously have a huge upside if he doesn't play. Buddy Hield as well. We'll see if Duarte, he's been banged up. He did return yesterday. Possible minutes there. We saw Goga was banged up. He's another guy that could be missing time here. This is a thing that's been nagging him. So, interested to see what happens with this injury report when we get it later today.
Awesome. Well, that'll do it for us covering the injury report. If you'd like to join us behind the paywall on the DFS side of things, I will be on the airwaves today at 5 o'clock Eastern with Mark Dankenbring, another episode of Dink and Dank. We break down the DFS 7-game slate for you. Also, if you are uninterested in paying us the monies to get behind the paywall, at least consider subscribing to our YouTube page here, get notifications whenever we go live. Make sure to hit this like button so we can continue to circulate this content and grow the brand. The more we grow the brand, the more free content you all get here. So, help us help you is the way that it goes. I'm super stoked to be back. It's a sprint towards the end of the regular season and then the playoffs, which I think the playoffs this year are just going to be epic with the amount of depth that we have in the league right now. So I'm super psyched. I'm well rested. Our props team was crushing it over the weekend while I was gone. 4-0 on Saturday. We took yesterday off. Didn't find anything that we really liked. 4-0 on Saturday, 5-1 on Friday. 12
Stupid
and 4.
O'Shea Brissett, man. Almost had the double perfect with if it wasn't for O'Shea, man. And we almost took his points too. So man, I would have loved a double undefeated, but
just a beautiful weekend. A beautiful weekend from the props team. Goes to show how strong our team is, right? A lot of people sometimes will if Mike's gone or if I'm gone, they'll be like, "Oh, who's in charge of things?" We got a whole team here that we've developed. It's really, really good.
We're the anti-Raptors. We've got a lot of depth on the squad.
We've got the depth. So we'll be cracking at it. I'm going to be taking looks at more props now. We sourced a few before the show here. We'll be sourcing more all afternoon for those of our premium prop subscribers. But yeah, appreciate you guys checking in with us here. We'll be back again tomorrow, 2:00 Eastern, to cover another injury report analysis show. Take care, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.